Where'd you learn that?
Hi,
And she
Jen.
said, well, girl, nurses care for people and they help people. I said, well, they do, but what? Can do it too. He does this every day. Very
Yeah.
confused. Very confused.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I think I got too many tabs going, so I'm going to close one out. So we are live now. I can edit it a little bit later, but we will go ahead and get started. Hi, Jen. She might be.
Hello. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. All right. So we are going to be chatting with Mr. Michael. It's Loomis, right, Michael? Ain't that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Excited to chat with Michael today for our Nurses in Tech live session. We are streaming to YouTube, and that's our jam right now. So without delaying the conversations, because we might end up having enough time for the whole conversation if we start now. I'm going to let Michael. So Michael is a member of Nurses in Tech. I love Michael's spirit. I love his ability to just lend information to nurses. Michael works on the technical side of things. I have a special love for him because Michael is a software developer among many things, which is where I actually first got started in tech with software development. So let's start with you just telling us a little bit about who you are as a person. You guys know I love the person aspect before we get to the professional aspect.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So my name is Michael Loomis. I have been a nurse for about 18 years,
Ooh.
and I became a nurse after my oldest daughter was born. I was young. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought her birth was the coolest thing I had ever seen, and went to nursing school 6 months later. Thought I would be a ICU nurse or nurse anesthetist, but I got to my OB rotation and went, oh, no, 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 no. This is where I want to be. This is where I'm going to go. So I went into the NICU, worked neonatal ICU for 9 years, and switched over to labor and delivery. And I've been taking care of families and babies ever since. I've infused tech in everything I've ever done. I started with computers when I was 5. My parents gave me one, so I'd stop taking apart the vacuum cleaner. And over the years, I've done informatics and cybersecurity. And as Amanda said, I started doing some software development and have a couple of projects in the works now. But I've always tried to maximize how we use the technology to take care of our patients, because at the end of the day, that is what matters. And right now in healthcare, there's just a lot of box checking going on. They're adding things to us day to day for not value added reasons. And it gets frustrating as a nurse. And I've seen people leave the field over big changes in software packages and other things. And I got into this field to take care of people and to help them live their best lives. And spending time clicking buttons just doesn't help me do that. Uh,
I
but
think that's all of us.
it's the truth. My mother retired after 35 or so years as a nurse because she didn't want to change another application. They were going to go live with Epic, and she said, "You know what? I'm done. I've gone through paper. I've gone through 3 different systems. Where I'm just done at this point." And it's sad to see that knowledge leave the field.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you have people like the ones listening to this call who realize that if we maximize the technology and minimize its interference, we're going to end up with better outcomes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the more I've talked to people in this group, the more I see that is the goal, but there's huge pushback from the organizations, and the people that think outside the box get smacked down. And I've seen that in my experience. I've had my hand slapped on numerous occasions, even when I've come up with and tested ideas that worked.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's
I
talk about that hand slapping. What did that look like?
So the one example always sticks in my head. I was working for a big healthcare system. They have 14 hospitals, and I was the informaticist for women's services. And there were a couple of reports that the vendor had written that no longer worked because over the years things had changed in the system and they weren't viable anymore. So I said, "Hey, I think I can fix this," because it was just using Cerner's command language, which is essentially their version of SQL, to look at the data. And I took one of our backup test databases and rewrote it and made it work, and then got in trouble and written up for touching something that I was not allowed to touch despite having access to it, which became another discussion with my leadership over, well, if I have access to it, why can't I use it to help us do things better?
Right.
But it was more, I came outside of my lane, which if you read any of my LinkedIn posts is a thing with me, that I don't have a lane. My job is to work with people to make things better for everybody. So it's not about a lane. I have knowledge, I have interest, I have questions, and I'm going to ask them. And the people that are going to get upset by the questions are the ones that are most uncomfortable with their own knowledge base.
Yeah. So that, that makes me think, how, if nurses are working, because you still work bedside, you still work in clinical, when nurses have questions that may challenge the status quo, or, in so-called push the envelope. I know one of the ones that we're going to talk about today is, this thing where we've always been told, it's always been done that way. Yeah. How can nurses handle that? How can nurses position themselves in a way that begins to get answers to the why? And that might not always be easy. And you may, especially in this day and age, because I consider myself to be a trailblazer as well. Now that I'm older, I realize, Amanda, you probably could have got a lot more done had you handled that a little bit more strategically.
You know what? I feel that. I that resonates with me quite a bit. I ask a lot of questions. I am a firm believer in the methodology of the 5 whys, and really digging into why something is happening and how it got to be that way, but from the viewpoint of just simply understanding. It's not a you're doing it wrong mindset. It's a, how could we possibly do this better for ourselves and for the people we are trying to help? And it is hard to get past that, because there are organizations that take offense to being asked, why is it their way? Why is it this way? And it's almost from the point of view of, who are you to ask? You are a nurse. You are just a nurse.
You are just a nurse.
I have heard that on numerous occasions. This concept of grit and resilience just really is important for nurses in general, because every single year we're listed as the most trusted profession by Gallup. Trusted does not mean respected. And
yes,
we garner a lot of trust. What was that?
That's come to be when they say, you're just a nurse. Think about it. Just like re-say that question. I mean, that statement, you're just a nurse, right? Now it's like, well, what does that mean that I'm just a nurse? I thought I was the most trusted profession. I thought I was empathetic and caring. I thought I saved lives for a living. I thought I was the happy medium between the doctor and the patient and the patient's family. I thought I was, it's all these things that I thought I was capable of doing, but now I'm just a nurse.
The very first time I ever heard that statement was about 2 years into my career. And it was when I first tried to really combine my technical side and my clinical side. The hospital that I was working at had some older pieces of technology that had not been updated in a long time, and they had some flaws. And I brought that information to the IT department, and the response was, how did you even know about this? You're just a nurse. And it kind of pushed me to, say, okay, that's true. Let's just see if I'm on the money here. And I was able to demonstrate the very serious flaws and actually stole the IT manager's password with him sitting in front of me, while seamlessly logging him into the EMR. So he didn't know that I had captured his password, and it actually logged him in. that actual flaw had been patched by the vendor 9 months prior to that, and they never updated.
Yeah.
But it was so easy to take advantage of that someone from the outside that had a malicious mindset could easily have taken advantage of it. And it turns out that I would have thought that was a step forward for me. It was more like, this is a step out the door because you've made yourself a target now.
Yeah. Did you get in trouble?
I ended up getting in trouble for not staying in my lane, and they couldn't even say I wasn't reporting up the proper channels because it was clearly through the IT department. But I only stayed there about 6 months longer and then decided to go traveling, traveling is very interesting because you get to see processes and people from all over the world, and someone else has to pay for it, which is the best part of it.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up in Indianapolis.
Yeah. So you ended up leaving that job on your own.
Yeah,
so they didn't get rid of you, but you ended up leaving anyway.
Yeah, I left. I wanted to try something new. And part of it was my transition that I was trying to go from the newborn intensive care unit into labor and delivery.
Okay.
And I traveled for a few years doing NICU. And when I really sat down and tried to switch over to labor and delivery, it actually took me 103 applications to get hired. Back to this grit and resilience. I have had several very large hospital organizations actually flat out tell me they wouldn't hire a guy into labor and delivery.
Now, I asked you about this. I'm like, I feel like that's discrimination, and I feel like you should do something about that.
I actually hand typed and signed letters to the CEOs, SVPs of HR, and the CNOs of those systems, and got responses from all of them. They actually called me back and said, okay, you know what, this is not, we are sorry, this is not who we are. And I think they were just sad they were called on it. But the last time that happened was about 5 years ago. But it's funny, anytime I've gotten past HR and gotten an interview, like, oh, you have crazy experience, we're gonna, we want to hire you, we want to take care of you. And my career has thrived with my patients, who I love dearly, and been nominated for, at this point, 6 daisies and won one about 4 months ago.
What? 6?
This hospital I work at now, the families, the patients are super involved, and they really like their nurses. They really remember them. I've been there 2.5 years, and I've had several patients on 2 of their births. They've come back, and I love what I do. I just don't always love the environment in which we work as nurses. And I think that a lot of us probably feel very similarly, that the core part of being a nurse, we do love. We just want to be able to make a bigger difference, or make a difference in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I joined this group is I want to be able to combine that tech side and the nursing side. And my technical background is a little bit different than some people's. I have a master's degree in IT, and I have an MBA as well. Did a fellowship after I graduated.
I did not know that. Back up. You have a master's degree in IT and an MBA.
Yeah, I did my MBA focused in healthcare management. I went to George Washington in DC, and when I finished there, I did a fellowship with a healthcare administrative fellowship with Partners Healthcare up in Boston, and spent 6 months sitting at the right hand of the CFO and the COO, and really getting to understand and see the hospital system from a different viewpoint. And wow, that was very eye-opening. Anytime you hear the nurses and their salaries referred to as liabilities, you go, "Oh, we have a."
Oh, I know they truly believe that, though. They do. They truly believe that.
I know they're looking at it from a purely financial and balance sheet perspective, but if you can't see your nurses as assets for the organization, despite the bottom line, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
But
so I'm gonna back you up, because I want to break down some of these things. And we're gonna get to talking about what you're currently working on, and what the future of your work looks like, right? But being a nurse, with 18 years experience, you went back and got a master's in IT and you have an MBA. How do you, first of all, what was your thought process behind completing those degrees?
The MBA was first, and my thought was that I would go into leadership aiming for executive level at some point. And again, with the mindset of I can use my experience and knowledge to help drive change and drive improvement for the people in the populations that we take care of. The IT degree was really just a formalized culmination of the things I had really enjoyed doing over the years. I've always loved the tech and the toys and coding. Yep. So I just kind of formalized that in the degree. If at some point any place actually said, "Hey, you need a degree in this," well, now I have one.
Yeah. So do you consider that to be, was looking back for, this is just a question, I just want to know, do you consider that to have been a good decision, or maybe not so a good decision? What were the pros and cons of completing those, not one, but 2 degrees outside of nursing in your mind?
I think there's more advantages than disadvantages. I think that comparatively to, say, a straight MSN program, the actual business and knowledge gained in an MBA, it's night and day. The depth of learning is just so different. And if nurses are really going to be sitting at that table in the C-suite, that understanding of the business side really has to be there. I think I derived more benefit from the MBA program than I would have from an MSN and what business knowledge was gained in there. The MSN IT was fun. It was a great cohort of people I still keep in touch with. It was primarily online, and I think the thing that I learned about more at the time is that when you're saying IT, it's often less technical than people think. IT tends to be more the application of the technology and day-to-day support of it versus computer science and software engineering, which is more of the actual development and coding process. But for nurses, IT is a nice bridge if they enjoy the tech, but they don't feel super technical. Things like informatics and application analysts, it's a phenomenal way to combine that love for tech with the clinical knowledge, because you get to make changes and support in the applications that we're actually using on a daily basis, the things that actually help us take better care of our patients.
Yeah. I'm going to stop right here and see if anybody has any questions for Michael besides myself. I know you guys are off camera, but if you have a question, you're more than welcome to ask Patience or Jen. I don't want to take up all the conversation.
I spent 30 minutes talking to Jen the other day, and it was really fascinating about human design and my profile and the things that came up in there. And she was telling me that my profile of the hermit opportunist, which she said is it's kind of fun that there's this introverted side that requires that solitude for recharge, but combines with that sort of CEO-like quality of going out and engaging with other people at the same time. But it comes back into this gift you're talking about called the gatherer, where people with that gift gather in abundance. It can be knowledge, wealth, things like that, but want to provide it back to the community. And I've seen that with me, specifically with knowledge and gathering this information in trying to use it in ways that can help nurses care better, help people feel better, and live better lives. And that's my goal for everything that I do.
Looks like she's going to say something. Go ahead, Jen.
I'm just saying, like, now just being on this call and listening to Mike talk, now I'm getting more and more now information on just how much his profile really does match. He really is really cool.
Yeah. She's so nonchalant. I am forever grateful for her for introducing myself to human design, because I had never heard about it. And I think she's really on to an amazing service. Just like I think and believe that what you have to offer nurses in this space of nursing and technology may not have been intentional, but it's definitely priceless. The fact that you remind me a lot of myself as it relates to gathering lots of information, not necessarily to use it. And I didn't know what I was gathering it for. But I'm very sure that I was gathering it to share with other nurses. And I still do gather a lot of information, although it has been very difficult for me to stop gathering information and just focus more on finding and connecting the gatherers, right? So the gatherers like yourself, right, who has an abundance of knowledge in an area where I don't need to gather knowledge anymore. I'm supposed to find the gatherers and bring the gatherers together so that we can in mass force impact other nurses. And Jen also helped me realize that too.
Yeah. But it's just so cool how everybody is like, this group has their own gifts and how we're all leveraging each other. It's really cool because like my gift is I'm supposed to share my wealth and my wisdom. So I'm not really necessarily a gatherer. I'm more of just sharing everything all my life experiences. So it's cool.
Yeah. Mike, so tell us about your current project, but you have more than one project, which you do not talk about. So I'm going to say, tell us about a project or projects, or what's your primary focus right now that you're working on.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen us struggle with as nurses is the insane amount of audits that we're asked to do. And so many of them by hand because we either don't have reports or don't have the access needed to do so. And I kind of looked into that, and Johns Hopkins did a study about 5 years ago and calculated how much money they lost to nurses not taking care of patients, or basically paying them to do manual labor auditing charts. And as it turns out, at least with my organization, ones I work for, we don't have any pieces of software that can do analytics for the obstetrical and maternal child world because they don't exist. Those are very specialized pieces of information and audits that have to be done. So I said I was going to write one, and working to be interoperable, there is a standard out there called FHIR, F-H-I-R, that Cerner speaks, and Meditech and Athena and Epic. And I'm building an entire platform that can interact with those systems, pull data back and forth on the back end, and basically create the dashboards by itself so that you can track and trend where you are passing your audits of any defined type. You can define them however you want, whether it's we have to do X on every admission, we have to do 5 temperatures between now and the time they go home. Any of that can be defined in the system and audited, and no one has to go looking for it. It's all readily available because the system calculates it itself.
Wow.
It's been fun. And I started off with a very small test that was cool. And then I have now built this larger scalable platform that I keep saying June 1st. It's probably more like July 1st, but it's more about getting it to where I want it to be. And I have a level of perfectionism that drives a lot of things. But the goal is to get, I would like myself back at the bedside more. I don't want to be gathering data unnecessarily, but it also is a proof that the combination of nurses and developers, essentially a clinical solutions developer, does exist. People that speak both languages fluently are out there and actually do want to help, even if there's not always a place for them. And one of the things I've learned throughout all this is, you know what, sometimes I just have to make my own place. And
yes. I think that's all of us here have in our own way made our own place, or taken a place that's out there or sector and made it fit us instead of us having to fit it. And I think that's going to be golden. It is golden now, but I think we're just at the beginning of it now. I know Amy is the director of nursing. I'm speaking for her because I see her on here, but I know in our first interviews, one of the challenges and things she wanted to solve for was being able to find a way to use AI and technology to decrease the amount of time nurses were spending charting so they could spend more time with their patients. And she's a director of nursing of a long-term care facility. So it sounds like what you're working on could be used in that area.
So this actually leads into a perfect thing to talk about. So specifically in OB, there's some risk assessments that are done on every patient, and we're looking for risks for postpartum hemorrhage and bleeding.
Yeah.
And the system is so flexible that you can design it any way you want. And there are several validated risk assessments, but most of the systems have developed them in a way that it's all dependent upon nurse charting. So every shift, I have to click on a multitude of boxes. So I had asked my organization if we could rebuild it in a way that took advantage of the data already in the system. And they told me that it wasn't possible. So I don't like hearing that. I went out, got myself 4 proficiencies through Epic. I built the automated system the way I was designed. It decreases nursing charting by 50%, and it adds 167 data points in the background that it's always watching. It increases the efficiency massively, and the nurses have to do less work, and it alerts you when things change.
Who's using this already?
2 hospitals consulted with me based off of my interaction in the Epic user web and have now built that out. My organization has absolutely no interest, and their response to me was, well, if we take away those boxes, how do we know the nurses are reviewing the information? They were more concerned with, how do we know the box is checked? Which is something that I just don't understand. If you're acting on information that you see, you have reviewed it. You can't act on things that you didn't see.
Right. So now I'm probably gonna go a little bit off course. Are you continuing to market this as a service?
That was a test project, actually. That was solely built as a test project. The application, the platform that I'm building now will be the one that I will be looking to sort of market out as a service, because it's designed to be portable. The other one was more a proof of concept, and it turns out the concept works. Just nobody wants to step outside their little boxes and try to build something that actually makes a difference. There's a lot of things for the future that have come out of this push too. We're talking about AI and all of the things that go together, and it's small steps. It's the machine learning and the algorithms that start and help make things faster, before you get to actually asking ChatGPT what drugs we need to prescribe for people. Epic just released a bunch of generative AI into their ecosystem that hospitals can use. I have not had a chance to review it as much as I would like yet, but they've offered up a platform to their customers that has, they say a lot of capability to it. I just don't really know what those capabilities are yet, and I'm curious to see what's going to come of it. We're gonna see more and more.
Any questions? Anybody got a question for Michael? Nobody has a question? Okay. All right. So, Michael, what's your next project?
I don't know yet. That's a good one. Throughout building this platform, I realized there were actually very few test patients in the test sandboxes that other organizations use for the same technology. I ended up writing a generator for OB patients that adheres to the standardized fire structure. I actually think that that project could be turned into an educational simulator for OB nursing, and that is definitely something I'm following through because I think that could be a lot of fun. Um, I was an educator for a system for a while, and they gave me a lot of flexibility, and I got to use my creativity, and they allowed me to go outside of the normal boundaries of we're going to do competencies every year during a skills session, and we're going to sign all these papers and do all these things, because that is not actually how competencies work.
Right.
And
right.
the Joint Commission does not say that. They say follow your own processes.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it, you're not doing your own things. I created a simulation with it in an operating room, and I used 5 gallons of Jello that I created as blood and Jello blood clots, and it ended up looking so real that when we called the rapid response team to come to the simulated code, the guy walked in the room and left because he thought it was actually a C-section.
Oh, so this brings me to the thought about how we've gotten away from really creating real clinical experiences for education, not even just student nurses, but even once we enter the profession, and we want to perfect our skills, we continue to get certified. I feel like there's the actual live experience of the clinical setting is just not the same at all.
It's not. And I think one of the things is we've gotten so far from the hands-on muscle memory generating simulations and through these talk through sessions that you miss that development of the muscle memory. I always made people, okay, you're telling me you're getting a drug, go to the Pyxis and go get the drug. You know, you need to get that muscle memory, because we also need to see what time this takes. But part of it is that we've come to an age where I feel like we're so worried about, putting someone on the spot during these things, or I don't even want to say calling someone out, but just putting someone on the spot, that we don't want anyone to be uncomfortable, that we talk through it and give everyone the answers instead of actually saying, let's do this. It isn't about right or wrong. It's about how do we do it best in the future when it actually happens.
Or how do I actually know that you know how to do what you're talking about? Because having knowledge and the application of knowledge are two different things.
Absolutely.
Anybody who's a Christian or knows that you can read the Bible and you might know what it says, but the application of it could totally be misconnected. Like, right? Just because you know it's there doesn't mean you know how to do it.
There's a lot of very book smart people that I've met in my life that when they try to do what they know in their head, they find it's a very different world. I did go to school with a couple of people that really met that description, and they struggled as nurses because it didn't fit their paradigm of, I know this, I definitely can apply it, because they weren't able to actually apply it because they didn't understand that connection between the brain and the hands actually doing stuff. And we're getting away in nursing education from that by relying more on these simulations without at least some level of standardization and thing. There's this rush to push more and more people through school because it's schools, but it doesn't actually benefit the profession or the individuals in the long run.
Yeah. What's the future of the future for you look like in your mind if you could create one? And my second question is, where do you think the future of nursing and technology together is going or could go?
So for me, I want to be able to build my company and be known as an organization and individual that can build the solutions that make a difference, whether it's for the administrative side, for the nursing side, or the patient clinical side. I've been fortunate to have this wealth of clinical experience in different areas and in different parts of the country, and have seen the disparities in outcomes. And I have huge plans on figuring out ways to tackle that with useful technology, stuff that targets patients directly as opposed to nurses. Getting the information out there in a usable and digestible format matters.
Yeah.
Nursing and tech, we need to be heard. We can't keep having this stuff develop without people actually, without somebody who's actually going to be using it in that room as they're building it. Or ideally, more people like you and I who have the bent and the experience with the development actually being on the team that's developing the stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely things I would set up differently if I was helping to develop CERN or Epic, because they're developed in a way that may fit a generic paradigm, but they don't work from I'm taking care of a patient and I need to do this workflow. And that I think can change as more nurses are coming in with a different technological base than ever before. I look at my kids growing up and their comfort with technology without being taught directly is much higher than myself and people for me.
I don't know what it is about technology. You either have people that are trying to fully embrace it without actually getting the knowledge of it, or you have people that are trying to like, totally stay away from it because it's like the apocalypse and it's come to destroy us. And so, we're going to not pay any attention to it at all. But there is definitely a huge gap between the understanding of nursing and technology. But even with technology, as we were talking about the other day, there are so many people out here that are beginning to jump on this AI bandwagon and want to be the experts already in AI without even understanding the difference. What are the different levels of AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, even the security, right? It's such a complex topic that we all are really still in the beginning phases, except for maybe you, of even of beginning to take in knowledge so that we can begin to understand before we actually apply it to what we're trying to do. Love for you to elaborate a little bit on that, because AI, it's like you'll see a nurse or even a thought leader say, I'm an expert in AI, and then they get on there and they teach me how to use the sidebar in Chat GPT, and I'm like, well, I thought I was going to get some detailed training around this, and you were talking about the same thing and everybody else is talking about.
And ChatGPT and some of the other stuff, they can be fantastic tools if they're used in a way that they're intended. Because if you try to use them in ways that they're not, you're going to get erroneous information, or it's just not even going to have any understanding of what you're trying to do. And there was, I think it was yesterday or the day before, they asked ChatGPT 500 standardized programming questions, and it was wrong 52% of the time. But of those times it was wrong, when they had reviewers look at it, the human reviewer missed the error 40% of the time.
Wow.
So it assumed ChatGPT was correct, even though it was wrong half the time.
Wow. That says a lot. Yeah. And, it's really, if you think about it though, we see this even in social, not just in our profession, but the way human beings are disconnecting from their mental capacity, like how they're trying to, like, if you ask me, human beings today do not use their brain to the capacity that they used to. I love technology. I love that things are getting easier in a sense, but you said it right. It's a tool. It's not supposed to supplement and stop you from using your actual brain, right?
You're right, and it makes me laugh because I'm always telling my 20-year-old, before you asked me this, did you actually try it or try to look it up?
No.
And it's usually no.
No.
So you're going to use Dad's brain instead of using yours.
Yes. Yes. I have 20-year-olds, and I've asked that question, and you know what my kids have told me? Well, why would I waste my time looking it up when I can just ask you, and I know that you already have like experience and you already know. So like, I mean, in a way, you gotta apply them. In a way, you're like, okay, you didn't go ask anybody. You did come ask me, right? I'm a trusted. Okay, I got you. But then it's like, okay, but you're cutting corners so much that it's hard to develop that foundation and that structure. I find myself telling my young adults, and I know we're talking about young adults right now, but I think this is the older generation, us older people, I think have it even worse because we are so locked into our foundation principles that we are not allowing the influx of new and being able to actually learn and understand it and want to learn it. It's either like I'm jumping on the bandwagon and I'm running 1,000 feet forward so I can make my retirement money because I got to retire soon and I don't know how to do it. So now I'm an expert in AI, or I'm just going to ignore it altogether and I'm going to keep going to my job and I'm going to keep, punching in the shifts and I'm going to act like technology is not there because it's apocalyptic and it's like, sooner or later, the whole world is going to end, right? It's like these like so far fetched thoughts and processes that it's like, oh my God, y'all. And so what are some steps? I know we're nearing to the end. I would love for any of our viewers, if you guys have questions for Michael, you guys can throw them in the chat if you can't say them. How do nurses, since we're talking about it, how can I as a nurse begin to understand a little bit more about technology, AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, even the security aspects and the application of it?
I think an important thing is to not try to learn everything all at once.
Yes.
The things you've mentioned are so, one, they're vastly different. Two, they are incredibly in depth. I mean, you can go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole with those. I think it's important to understand what is your goal. Is it to get involved in a way that is supportive, in a way that's development? Are you thinking entrepreneurially? Are you thinking career-wise?
Yeah.
Because nurses who are interested in being supportive of the technology in the organization, roles like informatics and understanding the EMR system, nurses who want to utilize technology to build a business, learn different products like that. Nurses who want to build a product as a business is even different than that, because then you're trying to understand the coding and the other things involved. For AI and machine learning, you gotta have some understanding of data and analytics, and structure of that. And the upside of this is there's so much good free stuff available. Google actually has a really great free sort of certification that deals with machine learning and TensorFlow. It's accessible, it's free, it's straightforward. There's ways to learn stuff that get there, but I would tell people first, don't learn something just because it's a buzzword. Figure out what it is you are interested in and find out what tools or knowledge can be of assistance to you along that path. Because you may start learning something and it may not actually be something that's going to be useful to you along the way. And that's not helpful to you as an individual or to the goals you're trying to meet. I've been a victim of that too.
Yeah. I love to call that shiny object syndrome. I know everybody does, because it's always great to learn a new tool and it's always great to learn something new. And if you don't learn it, you're behind. But it's even more if like you said, I love how you said, know what your goal is, know why you want to learn it, right? What are you going to use it towards? Because then and only then are you able to direct your learning and your knowledge in a way that is applicable to what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you find yourself in this merry-go-round of ideas, which never produces any actual content or any actual solution. So you're never offering any actual service. right? And I know I kind of went to the entrepreneurship lane there, because if you're a nurse and it's great. And I love the idea of understanding how technology can help us in our jobs, right? I love it. But we don't necessarily have control over what our jobs implement right now. And even if we think it's great, they have their own way of how they're going to go about the adaptation of new tools and implementation of new processes. And so most of the times that involves these bigger companies like Epic, Cerner, and all those. But as a nurse, we have an unbelievable opportunity to actually be able to look and say, what is a problem that my patients in my area of expertise are suffering from? So I already have the experience, I already have the knowledge in this particular area. I see a problem that my patients are struggling with. Now I want to understand how to solve that one problem and how technology can be used in application and implementation to help solve that problem. Now, once you do that, and but once again, it's like, okay, you came up with a problem, you came up with a solution, right? You're testing the solution. Now you have a service, right? And you then look for how to use technology in the deliverable, the ability to deliver and implement that solution, that service that you're offering, right? Very simple way of figuring out how, in what ways can I right now utilize technology to help patient care and patient outcomes immediately without trying to figure out how to solve a whole hospital system problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And first of all, trying to get software into a hospital system is it's not a simple process. Having been on the informatics side and the cybersecurity side, most hospital systems are very strict on bringing in new stuff, and especially if it's an unknown quantity. But even
in that, they need nurses at those companies, right? Most of those companies, you're not going to find nurses working on those teams.
You are correct. I've started targeting a few companies that are of interest to me to either work with or work for, and the number of clinicians with them is low, save one. But I think we're only getting to the beginning of seeing the benefits that nurses can bring into these roles compared to years ago. These are roles nurses would never have been considered 4 years ago, and now with everything that's changed in our knowledge base, we're demonstrating that we not only can do them, but we can thrive and help the companies grow, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah. I know we're getting close to time. We got 12 minutes. What I have asked Mike to join me in the co-creation of a series on technology in the area of nursing. We are just beginning to flush these topics out, but the conversations I know will be priceless. So I'm going to ask you, Michael, what do you foresee being some of the high level topics that we should probably create content around to discuss in this area of nursing and technology? I specifically love and really would like to lean into your technical side of things. Even maybe a couple of our series being about how to teach nurses how to even do or create a test project with minimal technical knowledge, but how to be able to start getting that experience and where to go to find that information. I'm just throwing out one idea I might have. What do you think we should talk about?
I think actually I really like that idea. There's this organization, the Women Who Code organization, and I kind of foresee like nurses who code, but the terminology and the understanding of the different sides of technology, because again, there's the career side of things, there's the in-place application things, and then there's the entrepreneurial side, but the terminology around it, and even just a little bit about how does the information get from one place to another, what exactly is the internet? And because even a little bit of understanding in that area can make a whole world of difference when trying to work with any kind of technology that requires connectivity.
Yeah. You'd be amazed at how much nurses don't. I mean, not even just nurses, people don't exactly know all of the ins and the outs of how applications are made or how the systems talk to one another, right? I think I can't remember who I was talking to. Maybe it was you one day. Anyway, about the difference with it was you about websites and the difference between having a domain and hosting, right? Yeah, so much to talk about in the area of even the internet before we get to AI. So I'm excited about that. Anybody have any questions for Michael? Any questions? You guys have been quiet today. You can throw them in the chat too. I feel kind of bad, Michael. We've had like a whole conversation by ourselves.
I've been listening. I think it's been very enlightening.
We've had like a whole. Thank you, Jen.
Amanda, you and I could talk for like literally hours.
We could, and it would be so beneficial, and I would not get bored at all. I mean, because I just love talking about. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and you guys know that people think talking is invaluable, and I think it's one of the most valuable assets that we have that we don't utilize. Because to tell the truth, like everybody's talking about creating content. This is Bridget's lane. Creating content. Like, what is the secret sauce to creating content? The secret sauce to creating content is having conversations. There's no secret sauce to that. But it is, because if you don't get your ideas out of your head and then put them in a place where you can actually see them, organize them, and then communicate them in a way that other people can understand and learn from, I guess it could be a task, right? But as we conversate and just talk around these conversations, these different topics, we begin to see the interconnectedness of the different topics, but then we also see the places where simple solutions can be had and can be found, right? You have this complex issue or this complex topic or this complex sector you want to conquer, but looking at the whole thing is like, okay, that's a whole lot to do, right? But if you can talk through it and you can break it down into smaller pieces and smaller chunks, then you can kind of see where they call the low entry levels are to being able to not only create new solutions and options, but we also kind of begin to dismantle these big systems and these big problems by doing so. Mm-hmm. And so I will forever value conversations. I will forever value talking to other human beings with other experiences to share and to try to understand what are our shared experiences, what are our non-shared experiences, and where is there opportunity for us to tackle a thing together. Mm-hmm. So I am forever grateful to you, Michael. I am going to let you close us out by telling us, I know you told us a little bit about I said tell us about your person, but you talked about your experience as a dad and how that got you into OB as a nurse. But tell us about who you are as a person, because you're a husband, you're a dad, you are one of 1,000 million nurses in your family.
Yeah, I am husband. I've married for, we're going to be 7 years this year, 17. We did go to Vegas, had a blast. I have 2 daughters. I have one who's in junior in college, and I have a 3-year-old. And I mean, that's really starting over. It's college and daycare. It's a second mortgage.
Yeah. I don't know why you did that, but I wasn't going to say anything.
The first one was one of those unplanned, unexpected surprises, and the second one, that was totally in the plans. Yeah. But my whole world in nursing revolves around better care for OB and in the maternal child space, and I've tried to do everything I can to support and educate. And I mean, I can't even list all the initials after my name at this point. I just started go with RNCOB because it's alphabet soup. And yeah. It never mattered to me what the initials were. The only one that ever mattered to me was RN.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you said, I think there's 9 nurses in my family. We all work different specialty areas. Literally, my mom said, I always wanted to work in maternity, but I'm too old to do that now. I'm like, they would definitely take you because you have a ridiculous amount of experience and we can train you. But we have hospice, we have cardiac, we have nurse practitioners, but it's a field that we just got into. We're one of those very blue collar families. Got Teamsters, union, truck drivers.
Are you the only man? Are you the only man?
Yes, I
only
am.
Male nurse?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did your mom become a nurse?
We were talking about this the other day because I don't talk about this too often. So for nursing to my family represents it was a way out. My family was not very well off. When my mom was in nursing school, we lived in a shelter for almost 2 years, and we were able to not only get out of that, but my mom was able to buy a house and move us forward, get out of bankruptcy. So nursing for me will always represent a stable path, but it's a way to give back too. People helped us out along the way. Now we can use what we've learned to help them out, and everyone goes into nursing for different reasons and takes stuff out of it in different ways. But I'm grateful to having ever become a nurse because it's sort of defined a core of who I am. And everyone has different, when someone asks you, who are you? People answer different things. And I tell them I'm a nurse. That's who I am at my core. And the best part about it is with this group is I can do so many things with that. I do not have to be in a hospital taking care of patients 3 12-hour shifts a week. The possibilities are endless, and tech makes it even more so.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't have anything to say out after that. I appreciate you for your honesty. I appreciate you for sharing with us who you are, your experiences, where you are now and where you want to go, and the ability, what it looks like to be open to the future without actually knowing exactly what that looks like. And so I'm excited to continue to have these conversations with you, as well as to be able to share your experience and your knowledge with other nurses. It is so very priceless. So many nurses today that are even looking to transition or even looking to do something greater than working at bedside. They will always find themselves saying, well, I'm not technical, right? Which lends them at the mercy of either going back into the system and doing this education Ferris wheel thing, or they end up at the mercy of technical professionals. But technical professionals are not always heart-centered pet professionals and not always versed in what it really means to be a nurse. And we can all agree that being a nurse is almost like saying, what's your gender? Right? Right. It is like, you can't just throw us in a bucket with every other profession. You just can't do it. And so as we continue to blaze this trail, as you have termed this trailblazing, as we continue to blaze this trail, your knowledge, your experience, and your heart is going to open up so many doors for so many nurses that are in our community now, nurses that will come to our community, nurses that will view this on live a year from now, a month from now, 5 years from now. The information that you've shared, your experience that you've shared today is invaluable. And I am so very grateful to be able to create this content with you. And I hope this is the very beginning of nothing but a very prosperous and successful, but also, I want to say also something that's dear to you for your journey and actually makes you feel fulfilled in what you're doing. And so that you know that all that you've done to now and all that you'll do after now is not been in vain. It's all setting you up for a specific reason, for a specific time. And continue to share, and continue to be you and be great. And be so, I don't want to use the word optimistic because I don't like that word. Continue to be the positive light that we need in our profession, but also just in our world, right? Everybody just needs to be a little bit more kind, a little bit more loving, a little bit more solutions oriented. Stop complaining so much.
My mother
Right?
always taught me to meet people where they are. And you can't go wrong with just meeting people where they are.
Yeah. 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 Well, I appreciate you. We appreciate all of the viewers that came on today. We will be back next week. Talking to Miss Amy, actually, who is on here and who's probably at work. So I see you, Amy. And so I'm excited to talk to Amy, kind of a shift in our conversation, just a little bit, but still always in our areas of focus. So talk to you guys next week. Michael, have a great day. We will recap sometime soon. And you guys have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.